This is Mike with the 21 Report, behind the scenes in Orlando, Florida for the 21 Convention 2017 10-year anniversary address. I'm sitting alongside Socrates, one of our alumni speakers. Soc, welcome to the show.
Pleasure being here with you.
It's great to have you once again. Soc, so before we go into some questions about your talk that you gave first thing on Thursday morning.
Yeah, lead off. Yeah.
I was wondering if you could give us a brief overview of your talk and why you wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, it's going to kind of sound interesting. The basic premise is something that had bothered me very, very significantly, and kind of the crux of my concern kind of going through kind of the pickup community, wanting to get better with women relationships. And I was always kind of relationship centric, which made me an abnormality amongst that kind of crowd. Not that I didn't have a wide variety of partners and actually throw yourself at it. If you're going to be single, be fucking single. But at the same time, I knew kind of destiny-wise, I really did kind of want to have a long-term relationship. I wanted the notion of family. But for a variety of different reasons, either early childhood experiences or probably as significantly, I had a partner break up with me because they said I would be an unfit parent. And not so much that I wouldn't be a good father, I wouldn't be a good spouse. And there were faithful issues, and the reality was it resonated with me because it was true. That at that time I didn't have command of myself, my presence, the things I really wanted, and my values and choices were not congruent. So as I'm going through this, I start evaluating it, and it's really hard not to observe the greater cultural condition, the context. And being an architect, context to me is where you start. I'm very contextually based. And so I knew I was going to have to create this within an environment that appeared to be really kind of fraught with risk. You hear about the divorce stats and everything else, and okay, it's a 50-50 shot technically, but the reality is I know I can improve my skills and improve my odds, reduce my risks. But as you start getting more and more into it, the risks became more and more apparent, the dangers became more and more real and significant. And so what you're ultimately faced with as I kind of got upwards in age and having choices of not having relationships, or more particularly, having long-term relationships that were not structured from the beginning to last, or with women who were definitely not mother potential. I kind of joke that other than being a large guy, I've got a taste for fucking candy, and I don't mean like sugars. I mean like women with half-sleeve tattoos, double pierced nipples, and daddy's like, oh God, not necessarily the wisest of fucking choices. Definitely not one you bring home to mom. Definitely not one you want to probably spread the gene pool with. Although on a biomechanical level, this chick's triggering it for me sexually. Doesn't mean she's good emotional stock. Yeah. And so I'm running with that and realizing, okay, is it me? Is it them? Is it the culture? Everything else? And you kind of get in a position in which you are, we talk about women hitting a wall. Men have a Darwinian wall as well. We just can't push it that far. There's sperm decay, there's associations with not only that, the demographics in which I felt more at ease, I say at ease, was more beneficial to me. There was a significant age gap. Women my age were just neurotic, just any number of tremendous amount of baggage. And the other thing is they were absolutely being outcompeted by their younger sisters, their younger brethren. And so you're naturally going to be inclined to do that. And if you start looking at some of the research, there's a greater degree with a greater differentiation between age groups. So being an older guy, I was high at risk, and then choosing somebody 20 years plus younger than me really put the odds of my children being abnormal, having birth defects, any number of issues, and that became an issue. And so you sit down and say, maybe this is nature's way of telling you not. And I was kind of forced at a biological wall to say, do you go MGTOW and cut the bullshit and stop deluding yourself about relationships and wanting what you've clearly passed up or the boat's missed, or saying, hey, you've got to take this shit serious and start really turning into it. And so by the time Anthony got a hold of me again, because we had known each other previously, I had been talking about relationships. I was really turning into those sort of things, but hadn't quite finished the threat assessment associated with this culture and what to do with it. And a lot of my talks dealt with that. So you can see kind of a progression of how I was talking about it. So this was absolutely returned back to the beginning for me. And so the big central tenet is dealing with biological imperatives. And so I take this notion, okay, if we have a biological imperative, and that knowing that, and that was the struggle, is if I can make all these rational arguments and build a wall between me and that fact, it doesn't change our biological nature. And so I take the concept right from that and say, okay, what is a biological imperative? How does it impact us? Dealing with sexual criteria. So the triggers. And how do you trigger somebody biologically for an imperative? And then how do you manage that? One, I've got to trigger attraction with a woman, and then I have to manage that. And men and women have similar biological selection criteria. They differ where we are different, because we're sex-based creatures. And to understand that, and then how to manage that. And then once you have kind of a full understanding of how to manage it, but that doesn't tell you how do you structure the relationship, who leads, who doesn't, what's the dynamic of that. So basically, I would say 3/4 of the speech is really just a biology lesson dealing with the sexual marketplace and our sexual nature. And then I kind of stop, and this is where, the things I originally started with that I still feel is terribly, terribly important, is what takes us beyond biology, what makes us really human, and taking a look at it. And I cover a little bit of sexual mating strategies. You can sit down and say, we have 3 different brains. Essentially we have a hind brain, we have a mid brain, and a forebrain, this cerebral cortex. Each of those command different biological imperatives. The lizard brain just literally wants you to fuck, spray, and skedaddle. Just no investment whatsoever, spread your seed. That's a lizard brain. Now, unfortunately, that's the earliest, most primitive, and so you'll revert to that at a minimum. Your default training is going to be that. Your mammalian brain is compelling us to actually have partners, to mate with a partner, to raise children, okay? But our mammalian brain was not necessarily built or designed for extended, long-term, lifelong monogamy. There was monogamous aspects up to it, but it wasn't structured for that. Our cerebral cortex is when you take all this rationality. Now, when we start being terribly rational and just you start seeing the advantages of monogamy, long-term commitment, long-term investment in child care, and child and family raising and development. And so you sit down and say you can take those sort of things. So, if you're taking a mammalian strategy, you want a pair bond, and have that, but it's not necessarily going to last. You're not going to put a whole lot of focus in or training or development. If you take a human approach, really look at it, analyze it, you can train and prepare yourself. And one of the things about being human is we have the ability to see threats coming from a distance. And if you know these things are coming, there's going to be difficulties here, planning in advance takes the threat away. It allows you the ability to scale and the confidence to do it. And so I talked a lot about that. In general, we know that this convention was taking a fairly hard turn to the red pill.
Yeah. And
so I kind of, essentially said, okay, it's something I know, believe in, have been writing about for a while. It's not something new to me at all. And then one of the issues why I'm not really involved in the red pill community is because I don't think they've taken it to the full limit. They've kind of gone down what they call, they use the Matrix as an example. And the Matrix, red pill, blue pill. But they also talk about going down this rabbit hole. And in essence, going down the rabbit hole is literally having the ground underneath you removed, and you kind of fall, you're free fall, and you go in this very surreal world. It's filled with, kind of really strange and, interesting characters, and some are imposing and some are threatening, and others are more amicable, but it's a very surreal world. The red pill seems to go down the rabbit hole, and they take pride in going down the rabbit hole, but they don't come out the other side. Yeah. And that's the other part of your obligation, is your job is to go through the rabbit hole. In having given the speech, I don't, you're in a state of flow. I don't know if I conveyed it properly or at all. That's the part that frustrates me. Is that the transformation from teenagers or children to adulthood, you have to kind of go through this process of accepting your biological imperative and then addressing it. Come to terms, taking on that mantle and addressing it. And I would say we have a biological imperative to actually have children. Your biological imperative is not to fuck. That's just a stepping stone to get us there. Your biological imperative is to have children so the species survives and reproduces. I would say also, and I know I said this, is that in addition to that, your humanity compels you to raise them. So I would sit down and say, of the 3 strategies, you can do reptilian, but I would take that off the table. It's such a low quality bar. You can do it. I wouldn't find that fulfilling. Mammalian is going to be nice, but we want better results than that, because that's where we're getting murdered. Taking a human approach, it's going to be incredibly difficult. It's going to be incredibly hard. But they're terribly self-interested rewards. These are your children. our children are here to replace us. It used to be kind of a running joke why why I didn't want kids. They're all here to replace us.
Yeah.
But there's a reality to that, and it's also a vehicle in which I can invest for my future. Yeah. I know through my child, my daughter, and by the way, I have a child because of this convention and Anthony and the work that I've done here, gave me the confidence to know I can have the partner I wanted and needed and raise a child. And then I know that I can look in my child's eyes, no doubt, that I'm absolutely the best individual and the best father I can be for her, and that I'm not going to let this little girl down. And I will actually make sure she transcends my life so that literally as I slide into the grave, I will have no regrets. Not necessarily no regrets. I'm not going to be clawing at life because I have unfinished business. I'm going to go into life and saying I've done everything I possibly can do, and I'm willing to slip into that long good night.
So last night, Sock, you were generous and kind enough to actually have about 120 guys come out to your house for the party.
Yes.
And everyone had a great time. There's a lot of great conversations going on. How was that for you, being able to host a party like that?
It hits me at several levels. It's kind of an interesting thing. One of the former speakers, Greg Swan, introduced me to the DISC concept, driven, incandescent, cautious, and social. And it's kind of his take on it. And I'm very driven, and I tend to be fairly, really strong incandescent, which means I kind of like the limelight. I like to show, which is really kind of odd because I'm actually an introvert, which is a dichotomy into itself. As a professional, I'm an architect. And he kind of made the analysis, you guys are worse than rock stars. Everybody knows rock stars like this limelight. He goes, but the rock star, when it shows end, he's off the stage. And he was an architect, you're still fucking performing. And it's really, really true. And then, another analogy is the videos that, like this, every time somebody watches the video content, and Anthony used that in the speech where he literally said, we have 500 views a day on any of Sock's videos. It's like 500 bobbleheads of, Sock giving a presentation. And I just thought of that and there it is. So in many ways, the house was absolutely designed to do that. Obviously it's a vehicle for living, and I believe that it's a machine for living. That's clearly expressed. I like artwork, so the house is designed to showcase art and be a gallery. There's absolutely no doubt about that. It's also designed as a sanctuary. So the philosophical approach to it was the notion of sacred and profane. Public space being profane, personal ownership and private property being sacred. And I laid the house that way out. It's two divisions of the house. It's clearly divided. All the public areas is a profane area, it's all open, and then everything that's cloistered together is a sacred space. And then there's a division between servant and served, but it had a philosophy there. And I was able to actually utilize my value of having people come in. And so there's kind of a running joke that there's a lot of drywall in the house because the ceilings are 14 feet high. All the walls are stark white, and it's intentional so that all the elements of my life are the things that give color to the house, almost like a canvas. My life is thrown against the canvas of white, and that's the artwork to me, the people I love, the things I cherish. So last night I had the ability to do an absolute Jackson Pollock. I was able to take the 21 convention, some amazing people who made themselves vulnerable by acknowledging through introspection that, hey, I'm interested in some of this, there's some things I'd like to learn, I'm willing to open myself up to it. They put themselves at risk financially by saying, hey, I'm willing to pay for this. And then in particular, attend an event in which I know that they're going to, if people who oppose this would have no problem with naming, shaming, and destroying their lives. And that's a very real threat in our society. So you have a tremendous number of people putting themselves at risk and being vulnerable. And we always talk about don't listen to what people say, watch what they do. This was a way for me to acknowledge in the same language, and you'll hear me talk about speak the language that's being spoken. If you're dealing with biological selection criteria, speak back biologically. I can't take a biological imperative for attraction and then communicate back rationally relationship equity. And that's where a lot of guys get hurt. And you'll hear a lot of blog posts written about that, a tremendous amount of red pill. You have to speak back biologically. So if the language is being trust, vulnerability, acceptance, and that's what's being offered, I have to speak back in that language. And so it was only natural that I showed that respect and validation by returning the gesture in kind. And so I opened up my house, my entire family, my entire life, and I tried to make everybody feel at home, and not just at home, in a comfort factor. I wanted people to express their, you know, like Jack Donovan said, their nobility.
Yeah.
And to sit down and hear a roar of conversations, barely be able to move or navigate around to, and I apologize to anybody who actually went that I didn't speak to. That clearly happened, and in a way that was awesome. That you know, you just couldn't talk to everybody like that. There was just too much life there. What I didn't do, and I joke about it, I probably should have, but it would have demeaned and diminished the event, was I could have sold tickets to women to this event. We say there was 100 plus people there. Easy.
Yeah.
Easy. No, it wasn't just 100 people. It was 100 introspective, high-quality males who are putting themselves first, who are honoring themselves by looking to improve themselves to make their lives and relationships better. Okay, we're talking high-quality individuals that will make a difference in their lives and anybody who's in their lives. And I had a house full of available men. You know, and I say that a lot of them are in relationships and are committed to making them better. Some are already fathers and taking serious pride in that. But it was a source of pride to be able to fill the house to that degree that it was literally overflowing.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Socrates, for putting that on. That was everyone had a really good time.
Yeah.
So, kind of before we wrap this up, if people want to learn more about you, more about your work, your blog, where's the best place they can go?
I have a blog that I need to, I say resurrect only because I haven't been posting because I've been doing so much with the convention. That will change in the very near future. So you can find more of me at manningupsmart.com. Again, it's manning up smart, you know, because I believe if you're going to man up, particularly in this environment, you need to do it smartly, taking the humanist approach to it. And so you can find me there. We'll be doing other events and other videos and probably a lot more content coming out in the very near future.
Awesome. So with that, you can see Socrates' talk first on 21university.com or by clicking the link underneath this video. Soc, thank you once again. This has been Mike with Socrates signing off for the 21 Report. Thank you.